Nice song by Rupa Goswami. Very short, but stava, prayers to Radharani.
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite.
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite.
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. Gokula Mandala Mahite
Gokulataruni Mandala Mahite
Gokulataruni Mandala Mahite Damodara Rati Vardhana Vishe Hari Nishkuta Vrinda Vipineshe
Vardhana Vishe Hari Nishkuta Vrinda
Damodara Rati Vardhana Vishe Hari Nishkuta Vipineshe
Vardhana Vishe Hari Nishkuta
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Vishabhanudadhi Navashashilekhe Lalita Sakhi Gunaramita Vishakhe
Anudhadhi Navashashilekhe Lalita Sakhi Guna Ramita Vishakhe
Vishabhanudadhi Navashashilekhe Lalita Sakhi Gunaramita Vishakhe
Vishabhanudhadhi Navashashilekhe Lalita Sakhi Guna Ramita Vishakhe
Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite
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 Karunam Kuru Mai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Vanita Charite
Karunam Kuru Mai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Sarnite Charite
Karunam Kuru Mai Karuna Bharite Sanaka Sanatana Vanita Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite
Short and sweet. Very much loved song amongst the Vaishnavas and followers of Rupa Goswami. We're honoring the appearance day of Srimati Radharani, and just 3 days ago, we had a very detailed explanation of different days of Brahma, Kalpabheda it's called, where different pastimes of Radharani's appearance were discussed. And the celebrated one that I'm accustomed to hearing takes place in Gokul, because for some period of time, Rishabhanu and Kirtida, as well as Nanda and Yashoda, they had no children. Decided, let us move. They shifted from their ancestral home to the eastern side of the river Jamuna, and that area is known as Gokula. And there Srimati Radharani appeared, because at that time a tributary of the Jamuna was moving right past the house of Rishabhanu, the father of Radharani. And one morning, early in the morning before the sun came up, he would take his morning bath in the river Jamuna. And when he waded out into the river Jamuna one morning, much to his surprise, there was a very large lotus flower floating in the river. And it was effulgent. At night, there was a radiance coming from this lotus flower in the river. So he waded out and looked closely, and within that lotus flower was a small child. Because he and Kirtida had desired a female child, Nanda and Jasoda desired a male child. So there was this golden girl, baby girl. And as he picked up the child, he felt his body surcharged with ecstasy. And so he brought the child back into the home, showed the child to his wife, said, this seems to be providential arrangement. Let us accept this child as our child. She was very happy. And there's details and details, but if I start going to details, we won't get on to so many other nice pastimes. An arrangement was made by Narada Muni for a big festival. There's details we're skipping. But Narada Muni requested Kirtida and Yasoda, not Kirtida, and said, invite everybody, be sure you invite Nanda and Yasoda, because they also have a newborn son. Let them bring their son. And while all the adults were engaged in the festivities, little Krishna toddled his way over to where Radharani was, because she was understood by the mother and father somehow as blind, deaf, and dumb. Blind, deaf, and dumb meaning when Krishna informed Radharani he was going to appear on earth and requested she come also, she didn't want to come because she didn't want to see anyone but him. And he said, it's okay, you'll see me. You'll be the first thing I see, the first thing that you see. So she was not opening her eyes, she was not responding to sound. A baby not crying, what's that? Some of your mothers looked over the side of the crib. Immediately, Radharani opened her eyes for the first time. She cried out loudly, jubilantly for the first time. And she was responding to messages spoken to her after that. So that was Radharani's appearance and her first encounter with her eternal associate and beloved Krishna. So moving forward, we had some discussions yesterday evening about childhood pastimes, and she grew as a normal little child would grow, from a toddler, and then gradually, after toddling here and there, charming and filling the hearts with great joy of many persons, she started to manifest the youthful beauty of Radharani. And of course, there was continuous interactions with Krishna. various ways. Especially if you just step back and think they're eternal associates in Goloka Vrindavan, and for Krishna's pleasure, there's pastimes of infancy and childhood, and how sweet the loving exchanges between them. Of course, with Krishna comes Krishna's abode, and Krishna's abode includes cows, and Radharani was equally fascinated in loving exchanges with the cows and the peacocks and the whole of Vrindavan. She loved Vraja because this is her eternal abode, and Krishna's abode, and she was perfectly at home. As their childhood grew, Krishna engaged himself in herding cows. So there's details and details of what he would do with the cowherd boys. And the gopis, there's details and details of their watching Krishna depart in the morning, wanting to go with him, but just their eyes went with him. And then after some time, as with Mother Jasoda, it was just dust on the horizon as the calves and the cows were moving off for the day's activity. But when Krishna came back, the gopis were ready. Krishna calling upon his flute and just love for Krishna in different moods. Share, but there with no envy. That doesn't happen in the material world, but it happens in Goloka Vrindavan and Boma Vrindavan also. Again and again, Radha would manage to meet with Krishna, Krishna would manage to meet with Radha, and always the flute played a central part of their exchanges. Radha offering foods because she had this benediction from Durvasa Muni that whatever she cooked would be so special, that anyone who ate her cooking would never get disease and would be always protected, and it was so delicious. One part of the benediction I didn't mention yesterday. Whatever she cooked, ladies, listen to this. Whatever she cooked, she'd name twice. She didn't have a recipe book. Whatever she cooked, it was never the same thing that she cooked before. And it was always out of this world, literally. Because of her love for Krishna, she naturally had affection for peacocks. This painting is showing she's holding a bunch of peacock feathers, looking at the peacock because the peacock feathers and the peacock remind her of Krishna. Some of you have maybe visited Vrindavan, and one of the places that you visit when you visit Vrindavan is Varsana, the place where Radharani lived. And on one of the hills of Varsana, there's 4 hills, and one of the hills in Varsana, on top of one of those hills, is this little temple. The temple was built to commemorate a pastime between Radha and Krishna. It's called Mor Kutir. Mor means peacock in local language. There's a very old photograph. Here's a more modern one. It doesn't look the same. Nice little set of steps to get up with railings in case you want to go there. It's very near to Krishna Kund. Another nice pastime took place with the gopis and Madhu Mangal, etc., etc. And it's just down the hill a little bit is Sankari Kaur, another very wonderful pastime place. We'll see a painting of that in a moment, where Krishna's stealing, taking tax from the gopis. Very celebrated pastime of Krishna and the gopis. So one day, Radha and Krishna were together at the top of this hill, and they saw some peacocks dancing. Now Radharani didn't say anything, but she was looking at the peacocks dancing and smiled. And Krishna understood what she wanted. So what she wanted was that he would assume the form of a peacock, and he could dance, and she would assume a form of a peahen, and they would dance, and together they danced and danced like peacocks, jubilantly. So the painting that you see is inside the temple that's up on that hill, commemorating the pastime of Radha and Krishna, assuming the form of peacocks and dancing. Along with Radharani and her own pastimes with Krishna, here's a very beautiful scene. Many of you know the scene. This is Radhakund. And many of you like reading Prabhupada's books, that I know. And in one of those books is Nectar of Instruction. The concluding part of Nectar of Instruction is Rupa Goswami describing the most elevated position of Radhakund. Here's a direct quote from Rupa Goswami's writing. Srimati Radharani, eternally, excuse me, my reading glasses, is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. I'll read it again. Srimati Radharani is certainly the most treasured object of Krishna's love. And in every respect, her divine Kund is described by great sages as similarly dear to him. That is, Radha Kund. Someone sent me some photos of the celebration of Radha Kund on Radhastami Day in Vrindavan. It's really spectacular. There's a zillion people all over the place. And lambs and Brahmins doing mantras and offering the big lamp and so many. It's a big festival. Because they're worshipping Radhakund, because Radhakund is not different than Radharani. And as Radharani is dear to Krishna, Radhakund is dear to Krishna. Many nice pastimes have took place between Radha and Krishna at this particular location. Moving on, there's so many nice things to share about Radharani. Yesterday, we spoke a little bit about the compassion hole in the ground. And the cowherd boys took their sticks and poked it in the hole and built a fire around the opening of the hole and were shouting and clamoring, and the poor jackal was howling and howling. Radharani heard the howl. She sent Lalita to find out what is that noise. She chased the cowherd boys away. Lalita's tough. Don't mess with Lalita. And she lifted the jackal from the hole and brought the jackal to Srimati Radharani. And Radharani said, don't worry. You'll have nothing to have difficulty in this life. In fact, I will accept you as one of the gopis in my entourage. Radharani is very compassionate. Radharani is very compassionate. And she's very loving in her dealings with Krishna also. Now, many scenes, beautiful artwork depicting their loving exchanges with one another, sometimes in a solitary place, sometimes in the celebrated rasa dance. It is said that in Vrindavan, there's always a full moon in Braja Leela, in Krishna's pastimes, to augment or facilitate Krishna's loving dealings with the gopis in their evening activities, like depicted here in this beautiful painting. Rasa dance is not understood by most scholars and Western people, and even those that are trying to become devotees, they misunderstand. So it's recommended, though we're discussing it, it's recommended to read the first 9 cantos of Bhagavatam before one enters into Krishna's pastimes, what to speak of the Rasa Leela pastimes. Very elevated, very confidential. Now, there's another painting I'm going to describe a little bit at length, a pastime this painting is depicting a part of. It has to do with a pastime that took place at Gauri Kund and Gauri Leela. Here's a photograph some years ago of Gauri Kund. Looked pretty innocent, innocuous. If you didn't know what it was, you just walk right past it. It's along the western side of Govardhan Hill. If you want to go, you can go. And it's practically across the street from Sankarshan Kund. Sankarshan Kund is well known, very large, Sankarshan Kund. In Vishnu Purana, about Sankarshan Kund, it is written that just by bathing once in Sankarshan Kund, the Sankarshan Kund is protected by Balaram, same name, Sankarshan and Balaram. All sinful reactions, even the killing of a Brahmana, etc., sinful reactions are completely taken away immediately. And on the opposite side of the Parikrama path around Govardhan Hill is Gauri Kund. Now there you see some water buffaloes splashing around in what was Gauri Kund some years ago. And there's a pastime between Radha and Krishna that's written by Rupa Goswami in his Vidagdha Madhava. Vidagdha Madhava, one of the celebrated writings of Rupa Goswami. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan is Vidagdha Madhava. Krishna's pastimes outside of Vrindavan, Lalita Madhava. Very elegant writings, translated into English now. And Natka means drama. So the Gauri Kund Leela begins like this. The so-called husband, you say so-called because there's no question of someone, Radharani being married to anyone other than Krishna, but there's a pastime which I'm not going to discuss where it appears as if they were married. So that it's said, so-called husband. Radha is meeting secretly with Krishna. So he thought Krishna's the bad one, my wife is the good one. And so he decided he was going to leave Vrindavan just to get away from Krishna, or have Radha get away from Krishna. But Purnamasi, so Abhimanyu went to consult Purnamasi and asked Purnamasi, I'm hearing all these rumors. This particular occasion was Shravan Purnima. Shravan Purnima is when Balaram appears. And the next Purnima coming up very soon is the next Purnima, Bhadra Purnima. We'll speak about that at the end. So during Shravan Purnima, he went to consult Purnamasi. And he said, I want to leave Vrindavan. And she said, why? Well, I'm hearing all these stories about Krishna, that debauchee, having interactions with my wife, and I can't take it, so I want to leave. And Purnamasi said, Abhimanyu, there's rumors about everything. You want to believe rumors? I'll tell you what. If you can catch Radha and Krishna meeting together firsthand, then you have my permission, you can leave Vrindavan. I said, very good, that's very practical. Now I have a second request. What's that? The second request is, I have a friend, his name is Govardhan Malla, and Govardhan Malla's wife, Chandravali, she's engaged in worshiping Gauri. And because of her worshiping Gauri, he's become rich. I want to become rich. Can you train my wife, Radha, how to worship Gauri so I can have rich and I can have many cows and I'll be doing very well in life. Can you train her? She said, sure, I can train her to worship Gauri. So he was very happy. Two things. Catch Radha and Krishna red-handed. She's going to teach her how to worship Gauri. So he departs. Abhimanyu departs. And on the scene, next comes Vrinda. Who is Vrinda? Vrindaya Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesavasyacha. Vrinda Devi takes the form of Tulsi Devi, but she's also personified in Krishna's Leela as Vrinda Devi. And she's like a go-between to assist Krishna in his pastimes and assist Purnamasi, an instrument. So Vrinda Devi comes onto the scene and says, I have a message from Krishna. What's that? The message from Krishna is he would like you to assist him making an arrangement so he can meet with Radharani. And she says, very well, we'll make some arrangement. Just when the two of them are speaking, onto the scene comes Lalita and Vishaka, her dearmost Sakis, Lalita and Vishaka. And they're having some conversation, and they're suggesting, why don't they meet at Gauri temple? Because Purnamasi said her husband, so-called husband, wants me to train her how to worship Gauri. And Vishaka said, oh, very good, because I understand that today, Sharat Purnima, is the time when Chandravali and her dear friend Padma will be going to her father's home. And we can make some arrangement, I'm sure, to have him get a little detour and go the long route and go by Gauri's temple. So they have a plan. And the plan starts to move into action. The painting is meant to show that's the place of Jatila. And Radharani is living in that place of Jatila with her husband and sister-in-law. So some time passes, and the way the Leela is described in Vidagdha Madhava is Krishna happens to go by Gauri Kund and sees Chandravali and Padma. And he has some exchange with Chandravali and Padma. He's teasing them. They're speaking back. Krishna moves to embrace Chandravali. She's Radharani's competitor, in case you don't know the Leela. And just as Krishna's doing this, Chandravali's grandmother happens to come by right at the right time and sees what Krishna's doing with her granddaughter. She scolds Krishna very severely and takes Chandravali by the arm and takes her back to her husband's home, not going to see her father. Plot thickens. Next, on the scene, Radharani has been sent by Purnamasi to go to Gauri's temple. Again, Gauri's temple is by Gauri Kund, which at that time now is on the western side of Govardhan Hill. So as Radharani is passing along the path carrying water to be used in the worship of Gauri, who would be in the path but Krishna? Krishna blocks the path, stops her from walking, saying, where do you think you're going? I'm going to worship Gauri. And purposefully, in the course of that interaction, Krishna purposely addressed Radharani as Chandravali, the competitor. The competitor means, the way it's described, for those of you that are not so familiar, Radharani is called a left-wing gopi, and her group of gopis that work with her, and Chandravali is the right wing. Very similar to Rukmini is very submissive, and Satyabhama is very sassy. She talks back to Krishna and she does things that Krishna likes. It's transcendental, it's not mundane. So Chandravali is the submissive one, and Radharani is the talkback one, the leftist gopi. So they're competitors, and they're groups of gopis and so forth and so on. There's the drama, many dramas centered around that competition, transcendental competition. Who will please Krishna the most? So she becomes very haughty when Krishna addresses her as Chandravali, purposefully. Then the scene changes, and here's Vrinda Devi. There we see Vrinda Devi. She's pictured with a parrot on her left hand or left arm. Commonly, she's painted and depicted that way. And she arranges a Gauri costume for Krishna. She's very expert. And he looks like Gauri. Krishna looks like Gauri. So Krishna hurries up in his Gauri costume and goes to the Gauri temple, knowing that Radharani is going to go there and start worshipping Gauri. Only Krishna stands in front of the Gauri deity. Who told her that Krishna and Chandravali are meeting together, so she wants to get back, because Lalita interrupted their loving exchange. So she, Padma, went to Jatila and Abhimanyu and said, you better go to Gauri Tirtha, because Radha and Krishna are meeting at Gauri Tirtha. So Jatila and Abhimanyu hurried off to Gauri Tirtha to see what's going on. And when he comes, there he sees, sure enough, there's Radharani worshipping Gauri. And Abhimanyu calls out in a challenging tone, aha, I caught you too. Krishna's not there, he's in the guise of the Gauri deity. And the Gauri deity speaks, not the Gauri deity behind Krishna, but Krishna, as dressed as Gauri, says, oh Radha, do not make such a difficult request. Loud enough so that everyone can hear. And Jatila wants to know, what's that difficult request? You've asked my daughter-in-law. And Gauri says, it's too horrible, I can't say it. Maybe Lalita can say it. Oh, brave Abhimanyu, Radha's requesting for the removal of a great disaster which is sitting on your head. No, it's the mother, not Abhimanyu, that's very worried. And Jatila says, please tell. No, I can't tell, it's too terrible. Vrinda Devi says, the day after tomorrow, King Kamsa is going to cut off your head and offer it to Lord Shiva. Oh no, please do something, Gauri, please do something. You're a powerful deity. Radharani's worshiping you. Please accept her prayers and protect Abhimanyu, my son. And Gauri deity, Gauri Devi said, oh Radha, I do not take much interest in the prayers of the sages and yogis, but the rope of devotion which you have bound me forces me to bless you, but on one condition. You must never leave Braja and always render service unto me. Infidelity will cut short his lifespan. Gauri Devi declares this. So Abhimanyu says, no, Gauri says. Vrinda speaks, Gauri speaks. O most fortunate Abhimanyu, Radha is the source of your good fortune. So do not mistrust her. And he has an apology. Oh, goddess, Subal. Subal is one of Krishna's friends, and he has a golden complexion like Radha. Subal sometimes dresses up like Radha and jokes with my jealous, envious mother. So they depart feeling, when Gauri Devi he wanted his wife to worship Gauri Devi, and there it is. Gauri Devi says, just come and worship me regularly. So he's going to get rich because he's Vaishya. He's not a pure devotee Vaishya. He's just a Vaishya. He wants wealth. He wants cows and money and prestige. That's Abhimanyu. So he's happy. Jatila's happy. And Krishna says to Purnamasi, Radha's great fear has been removed that her husband's going to leave Vrindavan. And the disturbance in her mind has been destroyed. The Sakhis have attained great bliss. Now how may I serve you? This is the end of the pastime. So Purnamasi smiles. I am personally fully happy. But still I have two requests. Please, always enjoy in the kunjas of Vrindavan with Radha. And any devotee who in whose ear a small drop of this nectarine pastime enters, that him or her attain a loving affection to your lotus feet like Radharani's. So you have now received Purnamasi's blessing, because you heard at least a drop of this nectarine pastime. Rupa Goswami. It's not fiction. It's Rupa Goswami. I want to speak about Radharani, but how can we speak about Radharani without speaking about the one who is revealing some of the glories of Radharani? Rupa Goswami was so gifted with empowerment of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he could not only understand the full length and breadth and full range of the ocean of bhakti and the nectar of bhakti, but he could enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and reveal them to us. There's many nice descriptions specifically of this, but time doesn't permit to go into so many specifics. Here's a painting, one of the many tax pastimes. The many places, one of the places for Krishna's tax pastimes is along Govardhan Hill, but another place for tax pastimes takes place at Varsana. You see Krishna's up in the tree, and as the gopis are bringing dairy products to the marketplace, Krishna's taking tax, and sometimes he's stealing. Now, stealing is bad. But when Krishna steals from Radharani, it's not just good, it's loving exchange. Because of time, I'm in some anxiety here. There's a very beautiful pastime. There's several beautiful pastimes where the gopis steal Krishna's flute. Now, how cherished is Krishna's flute? We never see Krishna without his flute. Even when he was little, he had a flute. And he always has his flute. In Vrindavan, he has his flute. And some are envious of Krishna's flute. They not materially envy. So in one particular, there's a very beautiful pastime, the detail I won't go into, but it's from Govinda Lilamrita, which is a book written by Krishnadas Kaviraj. Some of you know who that is. Krishnadas Kaviraj wrote this extensive Chaitanya Charitamrita, very elevated personality, very scholarly personality, and Govinda Lilamrita is describing some of these pastimes. So there's one pastime that he describes. In some mini summary, if you want to hear the length of it, There's some recordings of this pastime. I'm just going to give the mini of. During COVID time, we visited Vrindavan virtually. There were 13 classes of a virtual visit to Vrindavan. This pastime is described in great detail there. But what happened was, Krishna was so much charmed by his activities with the gopis, his flute fell from his hand, and Lalita Devi picked it up. And she started having this conversation. Radha and Krishna are having some competition, some dice game, and Radharani wins every time. So when Tish procedure, discern where the flute is. He does his Yotisha and he says, it's with Lalita. Lalita has it. So Krishna says, where is it, Lalita? I don't have it. She has it. So Krishna starts to search each of the gopis. When he comes to Lalita, just as he gets to Lalita, what happens? What happens is, one messenger comes to the gopis where they are saying, look out, Jatila's coming. Everyone scatters. Krishna completely forgets that he's missing his peacock and is going to have to search Lalita, and they go running. Jatila is expecting us to go to Surya Kund, but we haven't gone there yet, and she's looking for us. Where are they? And it goes on and on and on. And the flute falls from Lalita's braid. No one notices it because Jatila's got everybody's attention. Radharani puts it in her braid. When it falls out of Radharani's braid, Jatila says, what's that? The other day it was by the side of Govardhan Hill, and this thing came bouncing down the side of Govardhan Hill. I thought I should keep it and throw it away because this is Krishna's flute. Jatila said, give it to me. I'll dispose of it. And then, because Krishna wants the flute back. So he said, Krishna at this point, he's posing himself as a Brahmana to worship Surya Dev. It's a long story. It's a very nice story. He's going to worship Surya Dev. He said, I travel all the time. I'm going very soon to the river Jamuna. I'll just take it and throw it in the river Jamuna. Thank you very much. Now he's got his flute back. There's more details, and it's very sweet pastime. Very involved, very intriguing. Sometimes when Radha steals Krishna's flute, she pretends like she's Krishna standing in this threefold bending position. There's Lalita on one side, Vishaka on the other side, and she's always in different unlimited varieties of moods feeling love for Krishna. There's a very nice painting where she's just meditating on him in separation. There's one of my favorite paintings. This is Rupa Manjari, who is beautiful. The painting is beautiful and the message is beautiful. My dear love-blinded friend, you have already sold yourself and all your beauty to Govinda. Now you should not be bashful. Please, look upon him cheerfully. One who has sold an elephant to another person should not make a miserly quarrel about selling the trident, which controls the elephant. Very poetic. Rupa Goswami, in his spiritual identity as Rupa Manjari, is consoling Radha to not be shy and be with Krishna. But sometimes it's not shy, she's just feeling sadness and separation from Krishna with tears in her eyes. And sometimes the tears in her eyes turn to be the fire of separation. There are many nice pastimes and many beautiful paintings where the gopis, is under this circumstance, that Krishna sent his dear friend and cousin, Uddhava, with a message from Mathura to take to the gopis, to read to the gopis. And there's Radharani being consoled by her dear friends, because it's too much for her to bear. Separation from Krishna is too much to bear. And sometimes Krishna enjoys this mood of separation of the gopis, observing them from behind a tree or some distant place. And he's enjoying their love for him, and they're enjoying his love for them. And that's the nature of Vrindavan, particularly the love between Krishna and the gopis. There's a very nice verse amongst many nice verses. This is a verse by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur. Srinath Chakravarti wrote a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a celebrated verse from this commentary, from the introduction to his commentary. Many of you have heard this verse many, many, many times. Ramyak kachit upasana vrajavadhu vargena va kalpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Amala Puranam. We're going to be hearing something at the very end about Bhagavatam being the Amala Purana, the spotless Srimad Bhagavatam. And the beginning part is the glorification in his commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam that the son of, or Nanda Maharaj, the son of Nanda Maharaj, Nanda Nandana, or Brajendra Nandana, may be, the ways of worship may be various, but the one which was conceived by the circle, the Vrajavadhu, of the damsels of Vrajadam, is unsurpassable by any other devotee. This is Lord Chaitanya's teachings, at the Bhagavatam's teaching. The rest of the verse speaks like this. Lord Chaitanya accepted in this way. The worship of the gopis is superlative. And amongst the gopis, Radharani is superlative. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is a superlative reference to understand Krishna. Here's the source. It's Chaitanya Mata Manjusha, a commentary on the Bhagavatam. Now we're almost done. This is a nice little illustration of Lord Chaitanya is Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. There's a very nice verse that comes at the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita that says, eternally, the Supreme Absolute Truth is manifest in two forms, Radha and Krishna is one entity in two forms, eternally manifest, teaching us how that love for the divine couple headed by Srimati Radharani can be ours. One associate, I'm almost done, one associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the uncle of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Some of you are familiar with all these names. Some of you are probably not. Gopal Bhatta Goswami was the son of the chief priest of Srirangam. Lord Chaitanya stayed in the chief priest of Srirangam, Venkata Bhatta's home, for the 4 months of the rainy season. Gopal became his dear devotee. The brother of the chief priest became Lord Chaitanya's dear devotee. His name became Prabodhananda Saraswati. Elevated Brahmana, and he wrote 2 books. One of these books is Chaitanya Chandramrita. Here's a nice verse. To the degree that a fortunate pious person attains devotion unto the lotus feet of Gora, to that degree he spontaneously finds the notion of attachment to Sri Radha's lotus feet rising in his heart. Attachment to Lord Chaitanya means attachment to Srimati Radharani. And that was the gift, Vraja Prem, that Lord Chaitanya came to give. Specifically, attachment to Srimati Radharani. There's the last slide. This is a nice photograph of Radharani in Vrindavan, the deity of Radha Shyamasundar, same name as here, beautiful form of Radharani. And I was asked, so I will follow what I was asked to do, to remind you that very soon is September 29th. And on September 29th is the day that all over the ISKCON world is a very important day. It's Bhadra Purnima. And on this Bhadra Purnima, there's a benediction given in Srimad Bhagavatam that says essentially, the print is small, but the essential message of 12th canto, chapter 12, verse 13 is, anyone who gives as a gift Srimad Bhagavatam on this day of Bhadra Purnima, on a golden throne, attainment of the perfection of life is guaranteed. So we're going to be discussing this some more as we approach Bhadra Purnima, the Sunday program, specifically Bhadra Purnima topic. So maybe we'll see some of you then. And today we're again observing the appearance day of Srimati Radharani. And there's so many nice pastimes, loving exchanges that ordinary people can't understand. But our great acharyas and the Srimad Bhagavatam confirm there's no greater love than that of the gopis in Vrindavan, and amongst the gopis in Vrindavan is Srimati Radharani. We're honoring her appearance day. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to end here abruptly because there's another activity in the schedule, and I'm supposed to go quickly and give another class to another group of people out in the West Coast. Thank you very much for coming. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimati Radharani ki jai, Radhastami ki jai.